So recently I went to see my favorite oracle in Austin. She's a seer, and she's so good at what she does that I don't need to see her but every 15, 20 years. Yeah. And so we were visiting last summer, and we're having a little very nice conversation. And she says, I'm hearing, because she's clairaudient, that you're a bone washer. And I said, a what? She goes, and then she checks in with her guide. Is that right? Yeah, bone washer. And she says in ancient Greece, or maybe it was the Grecian islands or around Italy somewhere, there was a lineage of women that you are literally related to. And I guess they're professional mourners. Do you know what those are? They're usually empaths, and they literally go into a situation, like right now the shake starts for me. And it's not just that there's something wrong with me, it's literally energy coursing through my body that I'm learning how to be the chariot rider with it and go, whoa! Partly it's high sensitivity, empathicness, and when someone cannot access their grief, in come the professional mourners. And what was interesting about her telling me this is that she had no idea that I had just done my 23andMe chromosome test. And I'm actually 72% European, Sardinian, well, first Iberian, which is the original tribes of Spain, the original indigenous tribes, then Italian, then Sardinian, and it's the Sardinian that's the bone washer, yay! Because you can go on YouTube and you see them, man, they're doing it. So, what's a bone washer to do in Austin, Texas in 2016? Any suggestions?
Hang around funeral homes.
What?
Hang around funeral homes.
That'd be too easy. I think it's called a living room. Because one of the things that this lineage, that the oracle was telling me, is that they didn't just get the body ready for burial. Then they do the, coming into the house and doing the grieving for the person if they can't access it because they're in that stunned, shocked place and have no feeling. It's not just that, but then 5 or 7 years later, they exhume the bodies and they clean every bone one by one. That's the living room, as far as I can tell. We exhume these stories and we literally take out the bones and shake them out, right, Christian? Here's the thing that was in his leg, okay, well, that's another story. So, recently, I was invited, and I think you were there, by a very sweet woman to come and do a short panel for mostly talking to retirement age people, the baby boomers, right? The boomer animal. And it's people that are in retirement or about to be or thinking about it. And I think it was called, What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life? Is that right? And so I got a little criteria for the 5 minutes that we're supposed to do our spiel. And one of the things that I was being asked was, what is it that created what moment was it that got you on the path to your passion, right? And so I said, okay, well, that's pretty easy. 1970, coming of age, 12 years old. 3 huge catastrophic events in my life. One was my father's murder on his 40th birthday. He was in a family restaurant, and it just so happened that these 3 young men, brothers, the youngest 18, strung out in drugs, big time drugs, started an argument with him in front of my mother and my little sister. And it's an argument because my father had given the oldest brother a ride to work the week before and was running late and did not get him to his place that he needed to take him to. And so that was to start the absurd argument. Before it was all over, he was stabbed and he died 3 days later. The other event 6 months later was Hurricane Celia, one of the true huge 100-year storms of this century that came and hit the Gulf of Mexico where I grew up nearby, about an hour away. And 10 feet of water came into our house and we lost everything that we owned. This is within a 6-month period. My mother's still wearing black and we're literally having to leave the house, you know, helping on to each other for our lives. And an uncle that's trying to help other people evacuate gets caught in the current and taken away and pushed against the chain link fence, and he ends up drowning in front of our home. So now when I said that to her, she was like very understanding and kind, but she's like, can you leave that part out? Like, this needs to stay light. I'm thinking, it is light. I see come on, sing with me. I see the light come shining. Thank you, because when you have that kind of horror, that kind of catastrophe, you come of age. And you don't just come of age, you realize that terrible things happen to perfectly good people. And so I never take for granted that I need to speak the truth. And that day I betrayed myself because I said, okay, I'll lighten it up. And I did. I don't know what I said. What did I say?
That's great.
Okay. But it was not with that detail. And that detail for me did give me a lifetime of following my passion. I didn't stop to think about, I may have an extra day to get it done. No, you either do it or you don't. You know, when I say goodbye to you, I mean it. I want to see your eyes, because my father, I didn't get to say goodbye. You know, he was just going to go celebrate. You sure you don't want to come? No. I want to watch the Beatles on TV. Because they were on Ed Sullivan that night. Remember? Singing Let It Be, which became my mantra. Let it be. But in not sharing that, I thought, I don't do that very often. Okay, I'll go do service, right? It was service. But I'm sorry, folks, I'm a bone washer! We got it! You know, like when I teach intro to theater, which I do as a survey course at the community college, Austin Community College, I will ask my students 3 things in the first day of class. I said, who are you? Where are you going? And who are you taking with you? Because that's one of the things that I learned about shock and catastrophe and disaster is the incredible, perfect strangers that show up from all over the world, the Red Cross, and they come into your house and they take care of you and they bring you food and they bring you clothes. In fact, I don't like to buy clothes. I need them to be delivered in a paper bag. And I need them to be used. Otherwise, I don't want them. Okay. Right, Darylyn, she keeps me perfectly dressed, and I have several friends here, like my ex-husband's wife. She loves to bring me bags of wonderful clothes that she picks up in her job. I love that shit. I do. These pants are those. Okay. So, where was I?
You're a goddamn bone washer.
There we go.
Oh, yes. So they tell me who they are, where they're going, what they intend to do. Now, in a community college, you know, it's a wide range of people like you guys. Young, all the way to ex-military, to moms that, you know, are just getting back to really studying what they always wanted to do, but they got pregnant, you know, whatever it is. But when I teach the survey course, it's pretty much college-headed. This is a requirement, right? So they'll tell me their big dreams, and the big dreams are usually children of baby boomers, okay? And the baby boomer generation, to our credit, how many of us are baby boomers? Okay, how many of us are children of baby boomers? All right, so very quickly here, we are the generation that changed everything. Of all the eras and epochs of Americans, ours is the one that made the biggest impression on ourselves. And that is an important accomplishment. Because we are the generation that created the self, made the firmament of self, divided the light of self from the darkness of the self, and said, let there be self! If you were born between 1946 and 1964, you may have noticed this yourself. Now, that's not to say that we were a selfish or that we are a selfish generation. Selfish means too concerned with the self. And we're not. Self isn't something that we just, you know, are concerned with. We are self. Yeah. So, the youngest baby boomers, remember, they still like Lyndon Johnson, they thought. And now we're kind of, I like this quote here. We'd be sad about getting old if we weren't too busy remarrying younger wives and reviving careers that hit glass ceilings when the children got here, etc., etc., etc. And the truth is, if we hadn't decided to be young forever, we would be old. That's the bone washer job, right? Because in denying the obvious, we need to hear the stories about what it's like to be getting older and wiser, forever young in our heart, forever curious in our hearts, but no longer fighting the damn obvious. I don't know about you, but don't you get tired of that shit? Is it just me? And you work with me.
No, I'm tired of the shit, of course. I'm with you.
Thank you very much. And I'm really talking about surrendering the surface for depth, right? Which is a different experience. So, the oracle. This is where I'll try to end my story. Remember I told you I went to see her last 15, 16 years ago. I was in a similar place of marriage ending and going, and I was a professor at the University of Texas, and all of it just, I didn't want to do anymore. And so basically I headed back to Los Angeles at that point to start up my professional career there again. So I stopped to see my oracle because, you know, we're going to need all the help we can get kind of things. And little did I know that she was talking to me already about the living room. But I'm 6 years away from this becoming a reality, and I have no plan on coming to be doing no damn living room. It just wasn't in the plan. But apparently, from the oracles she gets, because she's not a psychic, she'll tell you I'm not that. Well, then how do you know what's going to happen in my life? Apparently we're a book that's been written. Apparently we are some kind of movie in the can. And she just picks up a frame and just describes it, because she doesn't know me socially. She doesn't know anything about my background. But here's what she says. She says, what I'm seeing is, and I bring this out once a year when we celebrate the birthday of the living room, because the words are so delicious. She says, what I'm seeing is, and she says, I don't know if it's a one-time something, improvisational. What I'm seeing you is on a stage or in the spotlight. And it's interesting because you have like a script next to you on a music stand. By the way, I didn't see this till like 3 years ago. So I had already started this and brought in my own fucking music stand, okay? Not because the oracle said so. All right, she says, okay. She says, and it's interesting because you're very relaxed. It's dialogical, almost conversational, which is different but the same. And at first I started to ask you if you did comedy. And I go, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I haven't done it in a long time, but yeah, I do characters. She goes, well, as I watch you do this, there's a sense of adventure. And I'm hearing in the background, I'm hearing my guide say, this is virtual reality. This is very alive. What's that word? For living room, right? It's very alive. It's as if you're introducing an awakening to this audience. It's something very new in a way. It's that you're able to do this without preaching or without conscripting, because you're not conscripting. When they would go around, when somebody conscribes, they go around taking people into an army without their permission, and that's not what you do or would do or are doing. It's a form or milieu I am hearing. While it's familiar, it's familiar. She's trying to get the word family, familiar. And she says, oh, maybe it's storytelling. So she just saw her guide, she says, with a clipboard, and he just checked off, like, check! There's a depth, he's telling me, and a breadth to the work that's calling you, which whispers to an embedded wisdom, asking to emerge. And he says, you're brilliantly improvisational, that while writing is a profound gift that you do, thinking on your feet with the electricity, in my hand. Communicating between you and those around you is stimulating and valuable. It is a way he's saying for you to take what is also true that is sacred. The sacred path opening for you is to share deeply, poignantly, and vulnerably with others from your heart. To jumpstart questioning, wonderings, memories, whispering between them and you and within themselves. And that, he is saying, is your gift. To strike with lightning to the very heart of the matter, creating change and rearrangement. This, he is saying, is not a ghost that beckons you. It is your soul. It is a vibrant part of your art. That, he is saying, that you have hidden from. And the material, as always, is your life. Lived courageously, boldly. He's saying you have dampened down your sparkle for good reasons and bad. And it's not that you've been wrong or right. You have simply been, well, busy, he's saying. And yet there has always been this sense of waiting to begin again. An underlying growing, knowing that you were being encouraged to grow and go beyond the pinnacles of your own experiences. You don't care so much about your name in lights as you do about lighting up the audience who hears you, who shares in the sacred journey of reminiscence and rectification. In this, he says, there's a hunger that is loose in the world for poignant, meaningful material. A lament of lost hope you seek to speak to, not with some false sense of Pollyanna rhetoric, but with fresh hope and renewed perspective. Concerning the depth and breadth of responsibilities and opportunities for kinship relationships within the family of humankind. You know in the very core of your being that great things are possible, and it is this greatness born of woman that is your mission to communicate and relate to men and women throughout the world, he's saying. This is not some confused delusion of grandeur. This is your work. Will you write and direct again? Of course. But this is something different. This is igniting hope in the face of hopelessness. Allowing grief, bone washer. Allowing grief in response to despair. Offering solace to support hearing. Meeting this growing need within yourself that touches others. And it's not formulaic, it's not self-righteous, easy, or inevitable. Like the rich, fragrant presence of new ground coffee that is lost when not savored deeply and immediately. Do you have a question about this? Of course I did. But that is another story. So, familiar, family, the sharing of our hearts, and not to be afraid of our sadness. Because there's some other bone washers around, and I'm going to end with his words. Maybe you've heard of Stephen Jenkinson and his work. He wrote the book Die Wisely, and you can see his amazing work in a documentary called The Grief Walker. He says, grief is not sadness. There's sadness in grief, but grief is not exhausted when the sadness goes away, and it does go away, because you can only drag yourself around and rend your clothes for so long. Sadness has a shelf life, but grief endures, and it's that capacity to hold the grief, because you can only grieve what you love. That's the testament to what you love, is the grief. And you keep breaking your heart open to it. It does not go away. It shouldn't go away. Then you didn't really love. Right? You're a pretty smart guy. Yes. So let's leave it at that. If we come to that realization, I hope that you have valued this time to revisit the sadness, the grief, and the jubilation, and the joy, and the excitement, and the kinkiness.
Wait, you look at me?
Yeah. In a good way. So thank you so much. I have no idea what our next theme will be, because we're doing something different in December. I'll be in New York for a conference during our regular time. So we will probably be at the Mexican American Cultural Center second week of December. It'll be a collaboration with the Latino Visibility Project. And then we'll probably do January there as well. And then we'll do our big love-in story time back here in February. So thank you so much, and I would like the lights to come on and then the storytellers to come up for their picture. And then if there's any questions about the storytellers, now's the time when they're up here. Does anybody have a question? Okay, then you're all fulfilled, I guess. All right, now let me come and have to clean your bones up, okay?